Before I get to Nietzsche, I wanted to say a little something about symbolism from last time. I didn't have this on the board last time you were in here, did I?
Nope.
Okay, so real quick, one of the things I asked you about on the symbolism worksheet was what it is that the underworld represents. Now, when you see things that are in these extremes, like underworld, understand that there's also a corollary on the other side. And so, I've talked before about high places and mountaintops and things like that, and when we see them manifest in literature. Now, it's important to see it not as something that just manifests in literature, so you have to know this if you're going to read, which that's a good enough reason, but even if it wasn't, the reason that these ideas manifest in literature and in philosophy and in psychology is because they manifest in the real world as well. And that's what books are based off of, the things that we experience, either psychologically or physically in some way. So I've talked before about the idea of there being these mountaintops. And mountaintops are areas of self-discovery. So I think the example I used before was, let's say you're going to go to Cowles Mountain, and you stand up there and you look down on San Diego. Well, what does San Diego look like from up there? Well, it's peaceful. It looks like it's ordered. It looks like everyone's just kind of going on their normal ways. If any of you guys ever go to Los Angeles and you go up to the Griffith Park Observatory, and you can look down on Los Angeles, and it looks really peaceful. Buildings are there. All the streets are like these perfect lines. It looks like everyone's going about their own way. But if you descend yourself down from that place of higher perception, let's say, and you're down on the streets of Los Angeles, what do you see? You see chaos, you know? So when you're down in it, it looks like chaos. But you can rise to a height, if you recall. We can rise to a height from which even tragedy ceases to look tragic. You can get to a point where you can see the whole picture, where when you're down in the middle of something, it can seem like it's terrible and awful. But when you get outside of it, then you can see a purpose to all of it. So a lot of times being able to deal with suffering and tragedy is exactly that. It's the ability to get to a higher place, as it were, in life. To be able to look back, and if you get to a point where you can look back on your life, or rise above and look at a greater perspective. Now, that means that mountaintops are places of self-discovery. You go up there and you physically separate yourself from the influence of society, and then you get to know who you really are. You get to learn, the real you. It's a place of solitude and introspection. And introspection and solitude leads to a wisdom. So it's a place of developing wisdom. Now, once you develop wisdom, what can you do with it? You do a couple of things. You can just kind of descend back down the mountain and hang out in your house and just kind of live out your life. But if you're someone who's particularly sensible, we can think about the allegory of the cave. What does the person who gains wisdom desire to do?
Spread it.
Yes, spread it, to go down. And so where is it that you're going to find the people who need it the most? Well, if this is where wisdom occurs, who needs it the most? Yeah, people on the other side. So you descend back down into the underworld. Now, the underworld is a place that's going to be a place of action. So what's happening on top of these places of solitude is just that, solitude, but it's wisdom, it's thinking, it's theoretical almost. When you go down into the underworld, well, now you're going to find out what really works, because that's a place of action. You go down there, and that's when you do the hero stuff. Up here is the preparation. Down here is the application. So you descend into the underworld, and you do whatever's down there. You go down there to rescue. You go down there to fight the demons. And when you're down there, what are you going to encounter? Great opposition. There's fire down there. The fire will burn away, but that's the thing. It'll burn away. It burns away all of the parts of you that are not necessary. So if you remember from the first week or two of class, I talked a lot about dragons and how we have this kind of story that permeates culture that we'll go out there, we'll fight dragons. Well, if you look at the traditions that have us fighting dragons and wearing armor, remember, you put on this big suit of armor, and you go out there, and of course, how do dragons kill you? They breathe fire. So how does it make any sense at all to put on armor, metal, if you're going to go fight something that's going to burn you with fire? But we put these kinds of things on, and so why is it that happens? Well, because it's a lesson in life. The ways that we go about thinking that we're protecting ourselves, we're not protecting ourselves. We're making things worse. So we'll throw on this armor. Maybe we'll even throw on this armor of compassion, as we'll say. You can't make fun of things. You can't just joke about things. And we think that armor is protecting us. Well, it's not. You know, so maybe you go down there and you realize, God, it's hot down here. So what do? Well, you strip away the armor because it's useless. It's actually counterintuitive. It's not helping. It's making things worse, actually. So you take off the armor, and then you kind of take away the things that are not necessary, and you're stripped down to just the things that are necessary. And then you find out what's necessary when you're down there. And then you fight whatever it is that you're fighting down there, and then that's when you become the self through action. Here you're becoming yourself through wisdom and introspection. Down here you become yourself through action. Now you're successful, you become a hero, and then you return and you come up to Earth. Essentially Earth just being the place that you inhabit. It's the middle ground between the high and the low places. The yin and the yang maybe, in a certain sense. But it's that middle place where you inhabit. It's the whatever place that is. You know? And you take with you all those lessons. And then what do you do when you're here? Well, you tell people about it. This is the journey. You go out, you learn, you accomplish, and you come back and you tell others about it. So think of it that way. The underworld's a place where you really are refined, where you find out what's working and what's not, and you're stripped away of all of the things that aren't necessary. And that's important, because whatever's in you that isn't worthy of representing you, well, it should be tossed into the fire. It should go away. All those extra parts of you that you think you need, you know, they should burn away. You know, even in terms of our insufficiencies. It's a strange thing to be proud of our insufficiencies, because your insufficiencies are the things that stop you from being what you could be. It's a weird thing when we'll get on Instagram and we'll say, I'm not perfect, and that's okay. Yeah, it's okay, but you don't want okay to become a license to not get better. You know, and I'm okay the way that I am. I don't know if any of you feel okay the way that you are. And if you did, by the way, I don't know if you would need to go on Instagram and tell everybody. It's just like if you're really over that person, you don't need to write a song about how you're over that person. You don't need to go out and tell everybody, man, I'm over that relationship. Man, I'm so over it. If you were over it, you wouldn't have to be telling everybody about it. If you were truly okay, you wouldn't have to be, posting self-help things all over Instagram, telling everybody that you're okay. And so we all kind of understand that our insufficiencies are the things that really are killing us, the things that make us dead. They should die. And so, consider that. Questions? Okay, so again, this is just from the symbolism stuff from last time. All right.